Hi, this is John Groders. Today on the No Shame podcast, our guests are two Canadian filmmakers who found out that the impact of making a great movie could be multiplied when filmmakers align together. So they started the Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival. Stick around and find out more on No Shame.
Have no shame, no, we are not afraid, no shame of the gospel of His name. It's the power of God by which we all are saved. We need not be afraid. No shame.
So it's Canada Day today on the No Shame podcast, and our guests are Rafael Kalamat and Jason Barbeck. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having us. Hi, John. How are you?
Well, I'm great. You know, we were together not so long ago in September. We're filming. We're not really filming. We're recording this podcast here in late October. But just over a month ago, we were at the Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival at the beautiful Hotel X in Toronto. And it's the brainchild and the product of you two guys. And tell me about the festival, what year we were in, and how it went this year.
Well, this year was year 3, and we're going into year 4. This was a new location for us with state-of-the-art cinemas, and we were truly blessed to have such a wide variety of content. We had 178 submissions from 23 participating countries, and which really makes it an international film festival. And we were thrilled and blessed to have your film, John, Tortured for Christ, that won for Best Documentary. And it was really well-deserved. We had so many submissions in the documentary area, and bar none, we love to have your film and to showcase it, and we were thrilled to have it.
Well, thank you very much, and it was a privilege to be there. I was there with one of my colleagues, and I tell you what, the chance to see some of the other films that were there and just rub shoulders with some people, I made some great new friends. We had an excellent time, and the screening of the film itself, I don't know if you guys even heard, this is, I guess, a little bit of my story, but we screened Tortured for Christ on Sunday night at 6 o'clock in the smaller of the two theaters. It held about, 50 or 60 people, which was a great size because the discussion after that particular film that night was just amazing. And they actually invited me to sit in the middle of that room at the end of that screening, and that group gathered around me and laid hands and prayed for the project, for the persecuted Christians around the world, for the actors. It actually doesn't get any better than that for a filmmaker in any circumstance. Wow. It was a beautiful thing.
Well, I heard also this Sunday, the gathering in the bigger theater was kind of impromptu, but I heard that was a amazing Bible study and prayer time as well.
Oh, did you hear about that?
Yeah, that kind of just had a life of its own, you know. We just wanted people to gather and to celebrate their faith and film, and then it just sort of took its life of its own, and people were blown away.
Oh, that's great. It was really a fun morning. These are just stories from the festival that are fresh in my mind. So the first event on our agenda that I was seeing printed was a worship service at 9 o'clock. And we got there, and the room was gathered, and there was a song, and then it just sort of seemed like we weren't quite sure if this was what we were to do. And I just kind of opened my Bible. I was sitting in the back row. I kind of opened my Bible, and the gal behind me says, I could use a little of that. So I thought, okay, I'll take that as a prompt. And I don't know, Jason and Rafael, the way I've been doing Bible studies the last 5 years is called, random verse Bible study. No preparation needed. Anybody can do this. And so I walked into the front and I said, hey, we're all gathered. Let's just let the Lord speak to us. And I took my kind of Bible and tossed it to a guy off to my left. Said he just caught it. So just open it to anything you can find in the first 5 books. And don't select, just let your eyes fall and just read to us what you find. And so he did that. And then I said, great. Now toss it up a couple rows. And the next person, why don't you read something from Kings and Chronicles, just something of history. And then he passed it over, and we got into the Psalms and Proverbs, and then the prophets, and then we got some Gospels, and then some Paul, and then some Revelation. So nobody picked anything. It was just a fall open But it's really cool whenever I've done that. There's always life that is infused in it, and there's threads and there's commonality. And so that happened that morning. Just this group of people who just had met each other. We had a Bible study, and then people had prayer requests, and that was really, really fun. Just totally unplanned. And then we saw a great film after that. So
yeah, it's so great.
There's so much power in the Word of God. We're thankful to be able to do this. I mean, this festival took its turn and birth because we were filmmakers. We made a film called Adam's Testament a number of years ago, in 2014, got released in 2017, and we didn't really have a place for it to live. It was really edgy, and the secular market said it had too much Jesus in it and too much faith, and they wanted to take that out, so we weren't willing to compromise. And on the other hand, the faith industry said it was a little too dark, too edgy, and so we had to break down the film a little bit, but it finally got released, and now it's on all the platforms like Pureflix and Amazon and so on and so forth. So really, we wanted filmmakers to have a home, a place to showcase their films, and there were very few film festivals, so we decided to create our own film festival.
Let me talk about Adam's Testament a little bit. I was watching the trailer of that this morning. And tell me what you guys, tell me about that film and your role in it and how you got it going, what you guys did. Just give me the story a little bit.
Well, John, that was something that was, I wrote that as a short, maybe back in the 90s, a long time ago, maybe late 90s. And it just sort of sat collecting dust for years. And then when I met Rafael, we started putting together, a little company where we'd shoot reels for people and try to help young filmmakers develop. And then we had the opportunity to pitch a screenplay. So we pitched a screenplay that a friend of mine wrote, but it was too dark and edgy. It was very secular. So the investor said, do you have anything else? And this is when my dad prompted me to say, just pitch Adam's Testament. It was only a short at this point. So I pitched it. He loved the concept. And then Rafael loved the concept. So we sat together and we developed into a feature film. I think it was, how many pages, Raph? 120?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was about 100.
Something?
Yeah, we went into a screenplay about 120 pages. Finally got into production for a screenplay about 100 pages or so. However, it was an incredible process of doing Bible research and how do we make it contemporary? How do we attract the youth and the young adults without a fluffy Sunday faith-based film? And so it was a film about redemption and love and angels and demons who walk among us. And it comes with a Bible study as well. We work with David Palmer Boyd, who's a pastor with the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada, and he wrote an amazing Q&A afterwards with a 4-week Bible study that comes with the movie. And this is really where we're at, John. We want to be able to bring the festival and all these movies to churches. Mm-hmm. And we're starting a program right now that any filmmaker that has any kind of literature attached to their film that's faith-based, that's submitted to our film, we're able to showcase this at churches. So it's a church screening program to create a movie night. Mm-hmm. And, we're thrilled to announce that today.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Is that Canada or is that, where is that?
Well, we will start in Canada.
Uh-huh.
And we got our first church on board to create a partnership and sustainability for our festival. So they'll be donating $200 a month to our festival. And in turn, we will provide a movie night for them every month of the year.
Wow, outstanding.
Praise God for that. We're starting December 7th in Cambridge, Ontario at St. Luke's. And, we're looking forward to it.
Certainly open to the U.S. We're open to everywhere, John. That's what we do. We reach the masses because the great part about what we do, we can provide content and we can handle all the licensing fees and all the kind of administrative red tape that churches don't want to deal with. They just come to us and we take care of everything. So for a full year, you'll have a new film every month, and including Christmas stories, Hallmark-type films, family films, and faith films.
Wonderful. What's it called? Do you have a name for it?
Well, it's called the Church Screening Program under the brand of our Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival. And we just want to make it a 3-way win situation. The church is going to be able to raise donations for their congregation. We will be able to raise funds for our operating costs for our charity. And the filmmaker will get exposure and be able to raise funds either through licensing or DVD sales at the screening. And it'll be ongoing, because once we get a roster of films, those films will be playing over and over again at different locations.
You know what I love about screenings, whether it's at festivals like CIFF or I've done church screenings now and again with some of the films that we've done, I love the discussion time after the film. And that's not something I get when I go to a theater, in my local town. And it actually drives my wife crazy, because I have to discuss, and you guys might understand this, the film, it's like what I want to do. I want to hear what other people saw and what moments in the film worked or didn't work, or what the visuals were or the dialogue. And sometimes you go to a film and you just don't have that opportunity. But when we do screenings, like I'm sure at the church screening program, the fact that a bunch of different eyeballs have seen that thing and have an angle to comment on it, to me, is often the richest part of the whole event. And I hope that can happen at your church screening programs.
Yeah, that's the plan. Absolutely.
It takes a life. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just going to say that back in the day, John, it was a big thing when they had on the DVD extras, you could watch the film and listen to the director and the actors talk about the films and the shots. It's not really big anymore. You don't see a lot of that. So, but you can get that in person, which is even better when you go to these panels.
Oh, I love those directors. Yeah, I love listening to those directors' cuts and hearing. Well, that's terrific. The church screening program, I hope that many churches across Canada and North America contact you guys. You will vet the films. You will send, I'm sure, quality stuff. You've got connections. I've seen a lot of the people that have been at the CIFF the last years, and they're the leaders in the industry. So you guys are in a perfect position to do that. And I certainly hope Torture for Christ and our curriculum, we have a great curriculum that goes with that film, and be happy to throw that in the ring and hopefully bring you more in the future. Because, well, why? Let's talk about the why of all this. Why do we care about movies at all as Christians? Why does this even make it onto our radar?
Well, I think the world's ready for these stories. People are acknowledging, and they're ready to hear these stories of redemption, inspiration, courage, faith, and family. It hits the heart, and our hearts are on fire to do that, and that's why people are wanting to see these films more and more. We're getting to a point where the quality of these types of films are getting to a point where it's really crossing over, and it's inspiring filmmakers and artists and the media to follow these films and to showcase them. So that's what's really incredible, John.
The idea of a redemptive story. There's a reason that propaganda works, right? So I'm working. I'll tell you guys, I'm working on a project right now. It's actually a prequel to Tortured. I'm leaving on Monday to head back to Romania, where we're beginning to scout locations and do pre-production for a film called Sabina. And Sabina is a film that takes place when the Nazis, when the movement of the Third Reich took over Romania and much of the world, and that whole World War II was being spawned, and they were doing propaganda films, right? So that was a big part of the mind control of the Third Reich and of the Nazis. So believe it or not, I was watching one. I'm going to have some scenes in this film where my characters are in two different movies. One of them are a group of young Romanian sort of activists, and they're watching this propaganda film put out by the Nazi war machine. And it's called The Eternal Jew. And it's an hour and a half of pure lies. Just pure, unadulterated BS, right? And I know what that I know what that is. And nevertheless, I'm telling you guys this sort of confessionally, as you watch that film, you actually start to get drawn into it. Even when you know better, you actually start to go, well, that's a good point. It's just horrible. I was like, I got to wash my own mouth out with soap or my eyes out. But the power of the film and the message, it can sort of steer, you said, your heart. It hits the heart. That sort of motivated me all the more, and you guys to do films and to bring together the family and to to try to elevate, create, spawn, encourage, connect people who can use that power for positive purposes.
And to your point, John, look at Triumph of the Will. That was the other propaganda film by that famous woman filmmaker. I forget her name escapes me, but that was the big one that they pushed for, where it really is indoctrination at the youngest level of the youth groups. And in the end, it's like this big swastika is going up to the heavens, and you think it's like God sent itself. I mean, it's just so crazy how they were indoctrinating it at the level. And it shows you the power of media once again. It's like when you get enough people watching something, it is like you're hypnotized.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're reaching you on that subconscious level. You don't even realize the negative seeds that are being planted. And that's how the enemy works. And I just heard a sermon this morning. I think it was Joyce Meyer saying how we have to realize the churches don't talk enough about it, how the enemy works.
Right.
These kind of negative seeds where they're indoctrinating your life, and you don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah, like you said, Jason, the power of media is incredible, and that's why we sort of coined ourselves as media missionaries. We're not pastors, we're not theologians. However, we do study the Bible, and we are Christians, and we're able to reach people through film. The Word of God is shown in kingdom values. It could be a family film without any mention of Christ, but there are kingdom values within that film. And if somebody watches that and it touches their heart and softens their heart, things could change in an instant. And so, we're thrilled. We just don't want to encourage filmmakers, but we want to encourage the audience. How do we captivate the audience as well? So, and then, we always finish off the festival by celebrating all of these people with an award show.
I'm talking with Rafael Kalamat and Jason Barbeck, the founders of the Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival. And I want to probe into you guys a little bit. I'll start with you, Jason. Can you just sort of share with me your life story a little bit and your testimony a bit?
Oh, I'd love to. Okay, John. Well, I've been in the film industry. I went to music theater school, and so I got into the game early as a performer. God was always there, but he kind of took a back seat because I got into this industry. And, this industry has a lot to do with yourself and the almighty I, that you create your life, you create your future, you create, opportunities. And so it becomes very I-centered. And that ties into the new agey kind of way of thinking. So that's the path I was sort of going on. Even though I still prayed and still had God in my life, it was certainly taking a back seat. And it wasn't until I met my wife, and then she brought me back into the church, and it was very evangelical, which I was not used to, where you're celebrating being alive and the music and all that stuff. So it took a while to get into that and understand. But then my son was born, and all of it came crashing in on me, where it was just like, this is God's grace, and this is a blessing to have children, to have a marriage and a life, And then a friend of mine turned to me and said, God's been waiting for you for 20 years. And he kind of said it in passing and kept walking. And I'll never forget that day because he doesn't even remember saying it. And I just went, you're exactly right. I've been sort of floating around for 20 years, and now it's like, welcome back. So that to me where everything came crashing in. And then when Adam's Testament took on a new life, that all happened at the same time. And then we were faced with the big question, is this a faith film or is it a secular film? But it was the moment where one of the actors says in the film, you will be saved by the power of Jesus Christ. And it's almost like at that point, all the crew kind of had this cringe thing going on, because if you're not a Christian and you don't believe, then it's like, well, why are you saying that? So we just took a stand and said, okay, well, we're going to stand boldly in our decision to make this a faith-based film, and we're not ashamed. But I tell you, you feel like Peter, where in the beginning you're like kind of denying it, and you're kind of like, well, I kind of am a Christian, but I'm kind of not. I'm kind of on the fence. So it's that moment where you just jump in with both feet, and you're not afraid, and you see what God has done for you in your life, and how He's blessed you, and then you feel awful for how even thinking that. It's like, how could I even think that? It's like, I'm only here. This film is only happening. My children, my life is because of God's grace and the blessings. So that to me is when my life's totally changed. Now I can't get enough. I got very hungry for the Word again. I jumped into the Bible. I'm actually almost through it for the first time. Rafael had just finished reading the whole Bible, and I pretty much got there. I'm into Luke now, so in another probably month or two, I'll completed the whole Bible cover to cover. So it certainly changed my life for the good. So now I just want to keep making films and reaching people through media and through our festival, because there's a lot of pain out there, and we see that now. And something else God does for me is that he shows me discernment. He opens my eyes to what's around. He opens my eyes to my sins and what I've done wrong and how I have to correct those things. And then he shows me how others need help. So anytime I'm feeling down or my life isn't going the way I want, he just places in my heart someone or something that's doing worse off than me or needs a bit of encouragement. And in the end, that's why we're here, is to encourage others that are in a place of despair, where they need to hear God's voice.
It can be a whispered comment from a friend, like somebody walks by you and says, "God's been waiting for you for 20 years." And we do this podcast, right? We're having this conversation. We're taking the time to discuss these things that really matter to us, because I always pray that someone's listening to this particular podcast today for some reason, not just because we're all so interesting in and of ourselves, but God has something to say. And if you're listening to the podcast and the very words that Jason heard, God's been waiting for you for 20 years. Maybe that's the exact thing you need to hear if you're listening to this podcast. Or maybe you're the one who's sort of been a believer but is sort of ashamed of it. And this whole concept of no shame, the name of this podcast is to encourage us to get over that. And we've all felt it. This is not a condemnation that, you've been a little embarrassed that people might look at you funny or think you're stupid or weird. Now we've felt that, and you made a great reference. Even Peter, had to get past that. And the power of the Holy Spirit had to come on him. Once it did, the boldness that the rest of his life stood for was just unparalleled. So I like to try to speak to you, if you're listening to this while you're driving your truck, or if you're listening to this while you're working out or taking a walk around the neighborhood. I just wonder if somehow God's been waiting for you too, waiting for you for 20 years. And you might not even know who said that to you. In fact, in this case, Jason said the guy didn't even remember saying it. But look, it's a push, it's a nudge. The kingdom will only grow if people move forward unhindered with the gospel. And we can get over our human natural inclinations to be hesitant and reticent. And I'm appreciative of Jason and Rafael and filmmakers. And we learn to do this with love, of course. Like, the point is not to go bash people over the head. It's to go love people and be available and listen and answer questions. Let me switch to you, Rafael. The same question to you. Kind of what's your story in the industry and in the faith?
Well, Jason, thanks for sharing. And John, to your point with Tortured for Christ, my background is actually Polish. So I grew up with stories of the war. Both of my grandfathers were in concentration camps. And so when I see these movies and stories, I could only start thinking about my background and the things that people have gone through in my family. However, I was raised in Montreal, in a multicultural English and French-speaking city. And at the age of 9, I was already auditioning for people like Polanski, auditioning for stage and film, and later studied Thomas D'Arcy McGee for the Center of Performing Arts for 5 years, and going to Dawson College for film and communications. And so I worked in every capacity in the film industry, be it background work or stand-in, stunting or acting. I was just thrilled to be around the industry, and still am, and still am. And currently I'm producing, writing, and directing. Acting very little, but that comes with age. It'd be nice to be a performer, but I need to be a provider for the family. So the film industry, being involved on the level of a festival director, probably fulfills me the most right now. Being able to help others. I never thought I'd get so much enjoyment from helping others. I think that's where my fulfillment's coming from. And that's where my purpose, and I want to pursue my life as a media missionary. a calling. It's sort of a calling to grow the kingdom of God through media. And I think that's where everything has brought me to. It's interesting how even in my high school and college days, I would put Bible studies together. I was introduced to an evangelical church in high school. That changed everything because I grew up as a Roman Catholic, and then studied theology for extracurricular credits, and my friends thought I was crazy. But then I lost my way, John. I got into film and television and theater, and I got involved with drugs and alcohol, and I really lost my way for a number of years until I met my wife. Things changed. I cleaned up my act, but God was always knocking, and He was providing me a way out, and really brought me back to my roots. And again, this film, Adam's Testament, when I first met Jason, we had a lot in common, and that film really put everything in perspective with my faith. It brought me back. I felt like my spirit had left me, and it came back to me. So if anybody's out there listening and could relate in the sense of, if there's a problem with addiction or feeling alone, you're not alone. That Christ is there, and you can make that commitment by just asking, and He'll fill your heart with love. So thank you for letting me share that.
It's something that is difficult in the film industry, and it's one of the things that I think about a lot. And you mentioned a couple of things there. One is that when you have the talent and the energy and the interest like you've had in your training, turning that into any kind of way to support a family. And you said, I'd love to be acting, but I've got practical responsibilities. It's tough to make it as an actor. My heart goes out to actors because really it's about rejection after rejection, right? I mean, you audition and you get rejected. And it might be because your hair is a shade, too light, or you just don't look right. And nothing to do with your talent, but it's not easy being an actor in any way, I don't think. You guys are actors. Is that true? Have you felt that way?
Oh, yes. And also, John, I've found as soon as you step out, when you're in a liberal city or a city where it's, really slanted one way, you really feel it. I've certainly felt it. Mm-hmm. Everything sort of got super quiet for me. I used to be very active, especially in the voice world. Mm-hmm. And suddenly you feel like, is it a coincidence now that they're just not calling or stepping back slightly? Mm. So that's why a lot of actors tend to stick to the faith groups, especially in the U.S., and do those types of films. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Unless you become very famous or, they can't deny your talent. So that's why they call on the big stars, because they want a big name in their movie. Mm.
This is one of the things that drives me crazy, and I really, really hope this changes. And and I'm not just hoping. I'm going to act on that hope. The same way you guys, you have acted on your hope. You haven't just sort of complained and gone home. And you started something. You created something. You've raised money. You've brought in sponsorships. You've made phone calls. You've given lifetime achievement awards to great actors like Graham Greene, who this year was really cool to see him at the festival. I just feel like, whatever we can do, I want to make more and more films and give opportunities for fantastic roles to great actors who are not going to get blackballed or, whatever because of their faith in Christ. And we just have to kind of create an industry where these people can work and thrive and inspire us. It's happened in the music industry, and I just continue to pray and hope it can happen in the cinema industry too.
Well, that's a great point, John. We always look to the Dove Awards as something we'd like to achieve on the faith film side of things. So we want to be able to celebrate all these artists, make them household names in some shape or form, so we could showcase these movies and make it more mainstream. Everyone knows Kevin and Sam Sorbo, but Carrie Solomon and Chuck Hosselman never really got any kind of accreditation for what they're doing. Even musicians like Steph Kars couldn't get into the music circle. He is slowly now, but it's nice to be able to celebrate them. In Canada, it's very hard for artists to get recognized really well. And so, it's nice to have people like Art Hindle and Graham Greene being recognized for their work. And the films that deserve the recognition. This year, by far, we felt that Unplanned deserved to be up there and recognized through all the scrutiny it's gone through. Yeah. even family films. Johnny Remo does a great job at Skipstone getting these films out more into the secular, but they're family kingdom value films. Max Winslow and The House of Secrets was that one. Then we have screenplays like Prophets and Kings that Christopher Bissett was working on with Lana King. Really, really incredible. And the actors. I mean, how many people know Ashley Bratcher or Matthew Fahey from The Favorite? Right? People know Kevin Sorbo and those kind of names, but we really don't know the other names. So it's great to celebrate them, and hopefully we can get that going.
That's a great way to look at it.
Like that, yeah.
That's a
Miracle
great
Meets Texas
perspective
as well. It's like who would have thought two con men from the turn of the century trying to rob little old ladies and widows from their money to build an oil rig, in their backyards, which is a true story. And they had to go through that kind of conning people out of their money to get saved. So these are really great, uplifting, inspirational films from adversity.
Yeah, you're talking about Miracle in East Texas, which is the new film from Kevin Sorbo, and it's a fun comedy. And he sent me a screener of that, like when it was sort of half done, and I've been sort of watching that before the special effects and the color came into it, and seeing how that thing has been progressing. And interesting, Kevin and Sam both won acting awards this year. Husband and wife both won acting awards for their roles in different films this year at the festival.
Yes. And, we have, I think it's, how many judges? We're up about 7 judges.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And, we tried to really step back and give it a fair shake and then really a fair look at the films in the judging process, because, we looked through all these films, and they both did such an incredible job at this. And, they win lots of awards and everybody knows them. So we were open to give it to somebody that nobody knew, but they just did the best work. And we
that's
said,
great.
you know what? Everyone voted the same, and these guys have to get these awards. And so we were very, very pleased to give it to them.
Well, I was pleased, and I'll tell you too. This is fun for me. I was delighted. We won. We have an award. It's sitting right on my shelf right now. It's a beautiful Crystal Award for Torture for Christ, but you're the first festival that we've submitted the lead actors in that film. Imo Monanach, who plays Richard Wurmbrand, and Raluca Botez, who plays Sabina. And I get the privilege of next week going to Romania to tell them both that they were nominated in that category. And as someone at that festival said, to be nominated is to win. I mean, it's such an honor to be nominated. And those actors, Romanian actors, that I had my church praying for when we were out over on that film, they're going to be so delighted that over here in Toronto, Canada, that was recognized. Their performances were recognized. And it's going to help me, too, because I'm casting them again to now play the prequel. They have to look younger, which will be interesting. But, and you mentioned Carrie and Chuck, who were the producers and directors of the movie Unplanned. And, I had Johnson, what's her first name? I can't think of it right now, on my podcast the day Unplanned was released. And it was so fascinating to hear her talk about that movie. And she's funny, and she's saucy, and she's just actually wonderful. And the movie's wonderful. And you mentioned Ashley Bratcher. That's why I'm getting Johnson's name. Why can't I think of it?
Oh, Abby.
Abby,
Johnson,
goodness
right?
gracious. Ashley, Abby. I was so close. But what a performance by Ashley Bratcher. Fantastic performance. Great movie. Full of, people thinking that, somehow we can't go see that movie. But I'm with you, man. Carrie and Chuck had courage. They live in L.A., You think they don't face what you're talking about, Jason, in terms of that kind of blackballing. But again, two guys who are not ashamed of the gospel and committed to excellence in storytelling. And I was just thrilled that Unplanned was at your festival. And I think it won Best Picture, right? Is that right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
yes, it did.
Good. I'm glad I got that right.
Last year was I Can Only Imagine, and the year before that was Let There Be Light.
Excellent. What do you got planned for next year? Like, are you guys looking ahead now, and what's the future looking like? What are your thoughts, your dreams, and how can we help?
Well, absolutely. We're about, as Jason and I had put it the other day, having this conversation at a board meeting, we're about 20% there. So we want to make the award show a broadcasted event. We want to be able to have an online platform for all these filmmakers to be able to share their stories through a revenue share platform. But mostly, we want to grow the kingdom, so we make the festival as big as we can without, being in over our heads, and being able to celebrate these artists. Right now, sustainability is really difficult for us year-round because we have sponsors that come in and personal donors a few months before the festival, running from February to, let's say, around July. And so year-round, Jason and I are working, but we don't have an operating budget, and or a very little one, I should say. So we're just trying to create this screening program so we could raise money year-round, so we could work on this full-time, get a team on board. And so we're just trying to get churches and universities and colleges on board to have a movie night. And we really feel the model is strong, and we could help the youth that way, because really we're here to encourage everyone to submit their films as well to our festival platform on Film Freeway, so we could get more movies in and make this a wonderful event for everybody to enjoy.
What's the website if we want to find out more about the movie nights, the screening program, when the next festival is coming up? Like, how do we follow you guys and participate? Where do we go?
So much like Netflix or PureFlix, our site is CIFFlix. It's CIFFLIX.com.
CIFFLIX, CIFFlix.com.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and much to what Rafael was saying, we're trying to also build monthly members. So we're trying to build a membership of people that will get an incentive. So by becoming a CIFF member, you're going to get you're going to save on your passes when you come down to the festival for a VIP pass. You're going to save there. You're going to get access to possibly monthly films that when we develop this platform, you'll have access to a free film, possibly, maybe come out to some of our screenings. We want to make this a whole year-round project, including the church screenings. And we want to give incentives to filmmakers. We want to develop this where we want to team up with universities and colleges where there could be possibly a scholarship in place for the winners, and really bring up these young filmmakers and encourage them to tell their stories.
Excellent. Well, I hope that if you're listening to the podcast, you take a look at CIFFlix.com, not the least of which because the second one listed is Best Documentary Torture for Christ. No, I'm not going to plug that because I want this to work for you guys. I want this to work. I want this to work for the industry, for the audience who I think sometimes wouldn't be exposed to some of these films if somebody like you guys didn't come along and say, hey, this is a great film. Because you might not read that in Rotten Tomatoes, or you might not hear about that because maybe the marketing budget wasn't so great. I know one that I saw at your festival this year was, you mentioned it, Max Winslow and the House of Secrets. I hadn't heard of that film before, and I probably wouldn't have heard of it necessarily because, I'm not necessarily going to that's really a film aimed at kids or teenagers, but it was a wonderful film, great to screen it in the theater, and I'm like I know lots of kids that this would be a fantastic film for. So you guys give that film some elevation, some exposure, and hopefully then families can have great entertainment movies that can be, positive for their families like that. That's how we hear about it.
Johnny Remo does great. His film last year was called Freddie. And that won Best Family Film as well. And it's, again, another great film that's available on Netflix now. And it's just he's really smart about getting the families engaged in his films. He's a devout Christian himself, but he's really smart about how he produces these films, and he does them really well.
Tell me a little bit about, you gave a couple of awards this year, and we just talked about Carrie and Chuck. And I was wondering if they were going to be there. In fact, I emailed them before the festival, hoping I might catch up with them. And they couldn't make it in person. They were working, but they sent a really, I thought, sweet, personal, appreciative video to you guys. Can you remember? They won the Faith Achievement Award. And can you give a summary of what they said when they accepted that award via video? I thought it was amazing.
I think Chuck and Carrie were really humbled by getting that recognition and being encouraged to work on films. But what the message really was to encourage filmmakers. So he encouraged filmmakers to even reach out to them, to don't be discouraged by trying to tell the story you want to tell or make the movie that you want to make. And he said, just give us a call, and we'll help you along the way. So that was interesting for him to mention during that video.
I was struck too. Like you might think, these guys, they've had success in Hollywood, but I remember them saying this award means more to us than if we won an Academy Award. Am I remembering that right? You guys remember that?
That's right. That's right. I was just about to allude to that. Well, we really feel humble for saying that, because I guess filmmakers are getting that kingdom appreciation, right? The people within the industry who are trying to make a difference are recognizing you for your work.
Yeah.
And there's not too many platforms that do that. And so we're really happy that they feel that way.
Yeah, we were really pushing for that one, and we've been in touch with Sheila Hart, the producer, for some time, going back and forth. And obviously, their challenge of getting the film first banned in Canada and having to push through that and break through that obstacle. There was such an uproar. There was protesters. There was everything. But the Canadian theater chain finally relented and said, "Okay, we'll let this film have its day in the sun," and it actually sold out in most cities where it was playing.
Wow!
So that was great that Carrie and Chuck sent that message to us, and when we did some research on them, I had vaguely heard their names. Obviously, I knew all about God's Not Dead 1 and 2, but to actually connect the dots with those two and to see their commitment to the industry, it was just it was a slam dunk for us. It's like it was so obvious that the Faith Achievement Award had to go to them, and the timing was perfect with Unplanned.
Yeah.
And for them to say that nice message, it just means the world to us, because we're trying to grow the kingdom. But, this is another obstacle for us, is that we're growing the kingdom through our festival, but we don't want to exclude people either. We want to bring people, because who knows? Someone may come in that's not a faith, but they may leave saved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who are we to judge, right? Who are we to say that you're not allowed, you're allowed? I mean, we obviously have our Judeo-Christian values with the films we select. It's very, very important to us, the films we select that are exhibited. But as far as people that come out and watch our films, it's amazing the ones that come in and just feel so uplifted and redeemed, and then they want to talk after, they want to pray after, and then we have people on site to do that.
Well, it's a beautiful venue, too. I mean, next year's, are you going to be back at the same venue, or have you made those decisions yet?
Yeah, it'll be next year on Saturday, September 16th. We find that a Sunday will be difficult for many people this year to come out because of school or work starting on Monday. So we're doing it on this Saturday. We'll open up with a Friday night screening and a mixer and registration Friday late afternoon and evening, and then moving into the next day. And John, you mentioned what would be different. We really wanted to have a prayer room. I think it's really important for us to have a prayer room at the festival. For people to come and to have fellowship. Those conversations after each film, we want to get that a little bit more active, where we get the filmmakers, actors, producers, writers to come out and talk about their film. Jason and I found with Adam's Testament, what became a 10-minute Q&A after the movie always turned out to be a 1-hour debate with the youth and young adult, and that's exactly what we wanted.
Wonderful.
It's really amazing. So getting the youth and young adults to participate is important for us. It's part of our mission.
Well, it was a joy to be there. This was my first year, and the hotel just couldn't have been more stunning. I mean, it was a beautiful venue, and you're right. Technically, I've been to film festivals before where they took care of everything except thinking about how to actually screen the films. And, sometimes it's been that wasn't the case at CIFF. The screens were fantastic. The audio was great. The rooms were fantastic. So it's really a fun festival to come to. Toronto's a massive city. It's fun to be in Toronto. And this hotel's just looking right out over Lake Ontario. And you just gave us the dates. So next year, it's a long time away, but plan to come Saturday, September 16th or Friday night, September 15th. Plan to come if you're a filmmaker or if you're just someone that says, we'd like something to do. Let's go to Toronto. Let's go to this film festival. Who knows what you're going to see? I'm sure you don't even know what they're going to see at this point, right?
Well, we've got submissions already coming in.
Yeah.
And we're working on a few big features. And I don't want independent filmmakers to be scared to submit their project. Our short division is vast, and we really celebrate it this year by showing over 25 short films. And we really want to be able to celebrate short films and independent filmmakers and give them the opportunity to be nominated and to be screened. And with our platform that we're developing, we're hoping to be able to include more independent films.
Excellent. You know, these shorts, I like that you mentioned that. You've heard of Jeffrey Katzenbaum's new Quibi that he's launching. 10 minutes or less, made for phones. It's possible that the shorts will be the dominant media form in the not too distant future. Vertical presentations, short pieces. Maybe our short filmmakers are going to finally have their day where they've got real distribution opportunities and build fan bases the way that the features have for so long. So, and I met some great young filmmakers this year myself who I went and saw their shorts, and we got into some fun conversations. And you guys did a great job with that too. The short filmmakers, I think, felt respected.
John, also we've tried to develop this thing called the Psa Youth Initiative, where any young filmmaker, anyone that's under 25, can basically take their phone and create a 1 minute piece or less.
Yeah, for 60 seconds or less. We worked with the Canadian Bible Society to get this launched, and I think we're going to finally get it done this year. And so to participate, you just need to be under 25 or under, and you could submit your film with whatever equipment you have, whether it's a smartphone or equipment such or more sophisticated. So we're really excited about that.
Well, I think you can tell this is Jason Barbeck and Rafael Kalamat, and they are the founders of the Canadian International Faith and Family Film Festival. But you can tell if you've been listening to this conversation that whatever your strength is, whatever your skill set is, there's a way to think creatively and turn it into a kingdom-building exercise. These guys are actors and filmmakers and producers, have gotten beyond the self-promotion that's inherent to that and said, how do we promote the whole industry? How do we give other people a stage and a platform? That's a humbling thing to do. And as Rafael said, that's become something that's become the most rewarding thing. Thank you guys for being selfless in that endeavor and for creating a platform where other people get celebrated because you've put the stage together where they can. And I just encourage you, and I can't wait to be there next year, and I hope I can bring another film next year if I can get it done in time. But even if not, I look forward to seeing it. And I thank you for this conversation, guys, very much.
Well, thank you, John, for your time and giving us a voice as well.
Thank you for the work you do, John. It's fantastic, and praise God for the building the kingdom and building disciples.
Well, thank you. Bless you guys. It's great to be teammates in the kingdom work. It's great to be that. Thanks very much. This is No Shame. It's John Groders.
Have no shame. No, we are not afraid. No shame. On the gospel of His name. It's the power of God by which we all are saved. We need not be afraid.
No Shame is a weekly podcast where John Groders discusses life at the intersection of faith and culture with all kinds of interesting and inspiring guests. Subscribe to the podcast today by going to johngroders.com, select the podcast tab, and hit subscribe. Listen whenever you have time, but don't miss any of these life-giving conversations.